Okay, guys, Bigler Beats here. This is going to be episode 2. It's going to be the mix of that same beat that I did the other day, Untitled 43. So, what I did is I took the original copy and I just saved as, and I saved it as a new copy with mix after it. Reason being is just in case you make a huge mistake or you don't like the mix or something goes wrong, you always have that backup copy that you can fall to. So I always do that just so I just get that off my chest and just feel comfortable just mixing the beat however it best sounds to me. I don't have to worry about messing anything up because if I do, I always got that copy backed up. So when I start off with the mix here, what I'm going to do is just make sure everything's mapped to each pattern is mapped to an actual mixer track, which I've already done this in advance because I did that actually when I was building it. So I've already checked everything. So you go into this, you see how it's mapped to 1, it's mapped to here. So when I play it, pattern 1, it's coming through there. I have everything muted, so take everything that's mapped to each mixer track and mute it. Bring it all the way down. We're going to start from complete scratch here, and some of the plugins I already had on prior, but I'm going to add more and get this mix where it needs to be. So the first things first here, we're going to get the synth. I like to start off with the main synth and get that to an appropriate level in the system. So let's just play the synth here, and you're gonna have to turn it up. My goal to start off with this first synth, you're gonna want to get it somewhere between -12 and -6, and it's going to eventually be louder when you mix it and master it, but just for the mixing portion right now, I want to leave a little headroom so it doesn't start clipping when I start mixing the rest of the song. So I'm going to put it, I'm going to put it somewhere there just so I have it. Another thing I want to make sure that's clear is when you mix, you have to balance your speaker volume versus your actual in-house DAW volume, like what's allowed legally in the audio world, like to the zero. Like for example, you don't want to clip anything over 0 dB because it's going to clip and it's going to sound terrible. So my point being is you want to mix to what the DAW is telling you, not to what your speakers are outputting loudness wise. So make sure you get your synth to the appropriate level, and then after you get it to the appropriate level, switch over to your actual speaker output level and make sure it's set at a volume that's comfortable for your listening right now. If you have to lower it or gain it, that's fine. But the point is you don't want to be compensating in the volume of the mix with the speaker volume, and I'm sorry, you don't want to be compensating in the DAW to get the volume up. You want to do that in the speaker volume, because if you compensate in the DAW right here, then you're going to eventually start peaking out. I hope that makes sense. It should make more sense when we start getting into the mix here. So next step is going to be to get the kick and the snare at the appropriate levels. I'm going to bring the snare up, but you have to start it in a section, obviously, where the snare is hitting. So right here. Cool thing about this is when you have a mixer track selected, like the snare in this case, you can see over in the big mixer where it's hitting. Like it's only showing you the snare. It's not showing you the whole mix of the song, just the snare. So I know it's hitting at -2, which is good. I want the kick and the snare, essentially they're going to be at 0 dB when you get your final mix done, but giving it a little headroom, and normally they're about the same 0 dB. So I'm going to bring the kick up. Really, or maybe I did do a little EQ. I did a little. So what you want to do is with the kick, I'm just using the Fruity Parametric EQ2. It is one of the, I've used Pro Tools and a bunch of other plugins, and this EQ is above its like it's above its time in terms of what you can use it for and what you can see. So graphically with the kick, I want it to punch through the mix. I'm not real concerned with frequencies that low. That I save that for the bass line. That's what gives you the rumble. The 808 kick drum itself, I want it to be punchy. I want it to cut through normally. So I normally do a high pass, and I cut it pretty steeply. And I'm just trying to cut out those low frequencies that are going to kind of muddy the mix. So I'm cutting them out here. Now, when you start mixing the kick, the first reaction is, well, you got to pull the bass line into it because the kick and the bass line go hand in hand. It depends what kind of music you're making, too. If you're making, sometimes the kick and the bass line, you're going to have to find a way to make room for both of them. The kick's going to be at one area and you want to cut through the mix and you want the bass line to cut through, but you don't want them to not mesh with each other and create like a rumble effect, almost like it's kind of like a mix, low-end mix nightmare when you get the kick drum and the bass line and they're conflicting with each other, and it creates just muddiness down there. You want it to be real clean. So that's what we're going to do next because I'm working with the kick. I need to pull the bass line in. So I'm going to pull the bass line in. I'm going to mute the snare out. I'm going to mute this. I'm going to mute the synth and the snare out just so I can see the kick. And right now my bass line's hitting -11. It's fluctuating greatly. So what I need to do is compress it. I mean, the dynamic range of it's huge. So what I'm going to do, and that first little pop that you hear, that's just the first kind of synth part of it. I'm not too worried about that right now. I'll be able to take that out. One of my favorite compressors to use on really anything vocals is the R compressor from Waves. It's set up just like any other compressor, but it does a really good job with bass lines, I like too. So I'm going to play the bass line. And I noticed down here, bass line's hitting anywhere between -17 and 11, I guess. Which is odd. It's got a huge dynamic range. So I normally look and put the threshold at almost the lowest point that I can read here, which is about right here probably. I'm going to put it a little lower just for safety. And it's, like I said, the range is huge, so I want to compress as lightly as I can. I'm going to boost a little gain so I can hear it. I want it to sound natural. If it starts to sound unnatural, too much compression. I'm going to see what I can get away with and get 2.5. I'm going to go 3. Sounds way better to me now. It feels so much more balanced. Since it's such an aggressive dynamic range, since it's so great, instead of using one compressor to handle everything, I like to use, it's good to use 2, 3, however many it takes. It's better to use multiple compressors than just use one heavily. I want to give some more feel back into this bass line because I took a lot of feel out of it, a lot of character out with that heavy compression that I put on it. So I'm just going to put on here the CLA-2A, which is emulated off the famous compressor. So I'm just going to use it as kind of something, it just adds a little bit of character back to it. So I'm going to just put on the bass template and see where it hits when I play. Way too much compression. So I'm going to just drop this down. still hitting it pretty hard on the compressor there. So, you know what's really funny though too, as I'm thinking about it, is I'm gonna move this down. I'm gonna turn that off. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna add a 76 compressor on it, because this is good for fast compression or quick transients where you can really attack it. It should help me compress it a lot better. So I'm gonna go to the bass. I'm just gonna pretend like I didn't do that C2A there for a moment and just listen to this. Input's too much. You kind of have to experiment. That's like all the buttons, trying to emulate all the buttons pushed in. Still trying to attack that attack, but it's not working too hot. So I'm gonna put this back on. I can put a little more peak reduction in now. Okay, I don't normally compress bass lines that aggressive, but this one's a little different. I honestly think the beginning of the bass line itself, it's kind of like probably a little bit of an air in the plugin and the sound. I don't think when I render it, it's going to come off that picky, because I've tested this before. And you kind of get that same sound throughout, but if you keep playing it, the sound isn't there. So I think it's almost like on playback, a little bit of an issue, not so much the real song. So let's see where this bass line hits. And even more, I'm going to put on this fruity multiband, which isn't normally something I do right now, but I have a crazy idea. I'm going to give it a shot. I could actually put a little bit of a high band. Well, I think that... I'm breaking every mixing rule you've ever seen. So I'm not happy with how that's still, even though I think it's an error in the thing, I'm still gonna compress it so heavily on the top end and reduce the volume down. So as you can see, I got that dynamic range down quite a bit, and I don't audibly hear a problem with it sounding over compressed. Okay, I'm gonna let it sit about there. I put the kick normally about 0, eventually 0, and the bass line somewhere between, like, around 6. If you're looking for heavy hip hop stuff, I mean, it could even be higher, like 6 to 4. Like, depends how much bass you want in the song. You get now for something a little bit more calmer, like a pop song or something, anywhere between 10 and 6. But I mean, depends on what kind of song you're making. So I'm gonna listen to the kick in here. Give it a little more fatness. I like how that sounds overall. I'm gonna run it also through. I'm gonna run it through the. I like the 76 compressor for this for kick drums. Like I said, anything fast sounds pretty good through this. Just to honestly give it a little character. There's not much else I want to do with it. So I'm gonna go and I like the. There's a blue and a black version. I use the black version a lot. I just like the sound a little better. I'm gonna pick the kick. And I balance. I want to do when I put on compressors, I want to make sure I adjust the gain accordingly, so where if you bypass the actual compressor, it would be at the same volume that you had it before. So you can easily bypass plugins and see with or without if you ever change your mind later in the mix. You can see my masters over top here. If it's giving you distortion, it's annoying you, you can just turn this down a little bit. Doesn't really bother me for this hip hop type song. Get the snare back in. Really want the snare to hit hard here. So with that being said, I'm gonna use the multi-band compressor. I'll put on there 2.4 mastering. Makes it a little louder. Keeps it about, well, it depends. You can smash a little bit more into the top, bring it down. I'm gonna bring some drums in now. I'm feeling the hi-hats, that's what I'm gonna do. I just don't want to be annoying. I want to be there, but not annoying. Looks like I already EQ'd this hi-hat. I pan it a little bit one way or another, just depending on what you're feeling. Let's add the open hi-hat. Okay, add that back clap in there. Let's see what else we got. Mainly all the drums are done. I can't even believe this beat sounds as good. It's so simple. Eventually when I start adding more in. Let's add this synth back in. Now I might tone the synth down and get it level. I want the drums to hit hard, so I want the synth not to be too loud. The louder the synth is, the weaker the drum sound. But if the synth is too low, then you can't hear it. I'm actually gonna put this multi-band on here and give this bass some, or this kick some compression. I'm really looking visually here to see how much it's compressing it. I mean, FL Studio, if you guys want to know a secret, this plugin's a secret right here. I'm not going to tell you the secret behind it, just use it a lot. It really works for a lot of things. Not even for the reason that it's there. I don't even use it for multi-band compression. It's the best sounding limiter I've ever heard in my life, especially for hip-hop music. Kick, snares, master tracks, doesn't matter, it just sounds great. Does it distort it? Yeah, a little bit, but that's normally what you look like for in hip-hop music. I want the bass line to be thicker, and it's going to be tough for you guys to hear with like the mix I'm giving you is pretty good, but it's not like in terms of the speaker mic combo, but it's not the greatest. I can mute the mic so you can actually hear the mix, but I want it to be a little bassier. So one of the best ones to do that is the B72. And it's going to add a lot of fat. Now you can use an EQ to do this, it's up to you, but I like this plugin makes it easy. Funny thing is, I just realized I didn't do any EQ on this. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna move everything down because I want to kind of do the EQ first. I'm gonna put on this. I'm gonna take off this bass, basically a bass booster. I'm gonna EQ this first. And the reason I didn't EQ for that higher sound is I already tried that out earlier, and I can't EQ it out enough. Like, I would actually ruin the bass line, that little punchiness you get at the beginning. But I'm gonna run a high pass. I'm gonna run it steep. Now I'm not gonna cut off as much as the kick because your ear can hear supposedly down to 20 hertz, and most speaker systems can't even reproduce down that far. Actually, almost everything can't reproduce down that far, but if you're using really high-end speakers, you can. So I'm going to look to see what I get here. I mean, this is the meat right here. Does anything drop below this? If not, I'm probably going to cut it about 28. See, if I cut out the top end, it actually makes it sound more staticky, so I'm just going to leave it how it is. So I'm going to go, now that I have it EQ'd, I'm going to go back to this. And you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but I'm going to add one more compressor to this because I still feel it's a little bit varying for me. And like I said, it's much better to use 10 compressors lightly than it is one compressor to do the whole job, because it'll sound better with 10 compressors. So I can see it's dropping down to like still here. So I'm gonna give it some compression. I'm gonna do about that because I heard some negative effects if I take it too far, so which you'd think I'd done that already, but it still sounds pretty good. So I'm gonna play the beat. I'm gonna add these bells in. I'm gonna cut out what's not needed. I don't need those low frequencies. It's really low, so I'm gonna just use this as a gain knob again. But you kind of have to pick this before you gain it. Actually, that's dumb. I'm gonna go to the lead synth here, or the bells. I'm gonna turn it up here. That's where it's down, so I'm gonna turn that up. kick hits hard. Okay, now I'm going to add the multi-band compressor on the master track, the biggest secret of all time. If there's one thing you remember, that's it. It boosts at 2.4. I'm going to let it happen because I want to hit hard. Turn my bass line down a little. I'm gonna turn my speakers overall up. Get a little cracks because I got like 80,000 plugins and compressors on it. So if that's the case, you can increase your buffer size. I'm not too concerned with it though right at the very second. So I mean, that's basically it. That's the mix right there. A simple mix. Really key points of the mix are getting the levels right. Also EQing things that you don't need there out. So I mean, technically I should go these lead bells if I already did it. See. So what I'm saying is you want to go to every single sound and you want to cut out things that are completely unneeded. So there's going to be a little bit of, you're going to see some frequencies showing up here on the low end. But I mean, for that synth, they're unnecessary. You'd be surprised once you start clearing out the low end on all your top synths and, you know, and then kind of cutting out the real low end of your bass stuff, like your kicks and your bass lines. That's going to really open up the mix for you. Cutting out frequencies you don't need. When you make music, half the battle is just cutting things out. It's not always about adding. Most of the time it's cutting things out. You can solve a problem almost two ways every time when you make music. You can either cut stuff or add stuff, and you can almost always do one or the other successfully. And I mean, for the most part, cutting stuff is the best, because if you can do that first, fall on that first, and then if you have to boost something, do that later. But try to cut first. It's not all about boosting. Other than that, I'm gonna post this beat pretty soon. Probably gonna do a couple fine-tune things, but I mean, you guys got most of the tips and tricks from what I would do mixing, and see kind of like, you know, how I do it. And if you guys have any questions, I'm gonna, you know, post this to YouTube, so you can comment below. Make sure if you felt like you learned something here, you can subscribe and like. And I'm looking to do a bunch of these. This is episode 2. Just did the mix for Untitled 43. Till next time.